Let's go. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the January 8th Transit Technical Advisory Committee. Happy New Year. Let's go ahead and do introductions. We do have someone new here, so provide your name and agency. I'm Dana Teray, staff to this committee with the Sonoma County Transportation Authority. And I will pass it over to my left.
I'm Rachel Eid with Santa Rosa City Bus.
I'm Emily Betts with SMART.
David Davenport, Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation District.
Chris Barney, SCTA, RCPA.
Steve Smith with Sonoma County Transit.
Jared Hall, Petaluma Transit.
Tanya Nareth, SCTA, RCPA.
And let's move up to the screen and start with Petaluma staff.
Maria Arce, Petaluma Transit Project Manager.
And Golden Gate staff.
Jacob Brown with Capital and Grants at Golden Gate Transit. And I also wanted to introduce a new staff member, Philip Camhe, who's also attending on the phone as a new principal analyst in our department.
Hi.
Hi, sorry, I'm trying to get my video working. This is my first time using Zoom on this computer, so I'm just trying to get it set up here. So hopefully I'll be on camera soon.
Thank you.
But nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you. And then let's go over to SCTA, RCPA staff.
Ross Clendon, SCTA, RCPA.
Dave Rupert, SCTA, RCPA.
Steph Britt, SCTA, RCPA.
All right. And sorry, I can't quite see that far the names on the list. So anybody else who's on the Zoom who has not introduced himself yet, would you please do so? Okay.
We're all covered on Zoom.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. Let's go to public comment on items not on the agenda. Is there any public comment? All right. Let's move on to administrative items. We have approval of the meeting notes from two meetings, the October 9th and November 13th meetings.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. And then, so item 3.2 is the schedule of meetings, SCT, RCPA meetings for 2025. We did schedule the February transit TAC on a holiday. So I wanted to bring that up and talk to the group about rescheduling that meeting. I think that Lincoln's birthday holiday used to always be on a Monday, and now SCTA, RCPA observes it on the Wednesday. So that's a change I'm not used to. So I wanted to poll the group about, meeting either the prior Wednesday or the following Wednesday, the 5th or the 19th of February. Or if somebody wants to come up with another proposal, I'm open to that as well.
So the 12th actually is like a holiday somewhere. So
It is, yeah, so the, SCTA RCPA follows the county's holiday schedule, and they did change it, I believe, since last year to not be on a Monday, but to be on a Wednesday.
it's confusing.
Yeah.
The only county in the country.
Yeah, I think it's the actual date of the federal holiday. It's different from the schools, and it's messing everybody up.
Okay, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
I can do either of those other Wednesdays, so.
Okay. Does anyone else have a preference or any conflicts with either the February 5th or February 19th?
David and I have a meeting at 11 on both those days, but we could maybe miss it or.
I have a feeling at least one of those will be canceled. I'm gonna say that for me, technically both work, but the 19th would definitely be better for me.
Okay.
If it's the 5th, I might have to remote in, which I don't know. I guess we probably still have a quorum if everybody else comes.
Yeah, and I don't anticipate any action items at that meeting. I think that, generally by February, we have some preliminary things to discuss with a coordinated claim. But we wouldn't take any action until March.
Okay.
And I don't anticipate any other action items. So if remote participation is, needed, that's fine. But I could, if there's a preference for the 19th, that certainly works for our schedule.
Either one's fine for me.
Okay. Well, I'm hearing a slight preference for the 19th, so, and I think if that works for everyone, we'll go ahead and do that.
What is that sound? It's the middle school.
Oh, the bell.
Yeah, okay.
That's their bell?
Oh, no.
Thought it was an emergency
Yeah,
alert.
it did
thought
kind of
so
sound
too.
like
I was
an
waiting
emergency.
for it.
Yeah. Yes, February 19th, same time, same place. All right, thank you all. So next item is regional funding, and under regional funding, we have the Transportation Fund for Clean Air program update recommendation. This is an action item, and I believe that Margot Ocañas is going to open this item up. I saw her on here earlier, but. Margot, are you still on, or did you want me to jump in and start this off? Or David? Oh, there you go.
Yes, good morning. I am very sorry. Would you mind repeating the question?
Oh, yeah, we just have the item up for the Transportation Fund for Clean Air program update recommendation.
Yes, I am so sorry, you guys. I am dealing with a LA fire emergency situation, so perhaps I'm so sorry. Could either yourself or David maybe just support with responding to that, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. And good luck.
I apologize. Thank you.
All right, well, I'll kick this off, and then David, if you want to jump in at any point, please do. So historically, the Transportation Fund for Clean Air program, that the 40% county manager program that comes through SCTA has been distributed, giving an off the top entitlement to Sonoma County Transit, Santa Rosa City Bus, and Petaluma Transit, based on their share of the countywide population. And then there's been a small competitive portion that is open for other projects that could be applied for by the cities or by transit agencies. This went into place in 2006, and it was kind of following a history of the fund actually being distributed to all jurisdictions within the county in very small amounts. The program has evolved and changed over the years. And And even since 2006, it has evolved and changed both with the policies and the types of projects that are eligible and competitive for funding. SCTA has seen some changes over the recent years, some challenges with funding electric bus purchases, which have been kind of the type of project that transit has been funding in the recent years, since marketing kind of became more challenging, and now electric bus purchases have become more challenging with this fund. We've also heard from cities that, you know, the small competitive amount is sometimes not worth applying for because of the amount and the kind of administration that goes along with it. So staff is recommending that we change the program so that it is 100% competitive and base the evaluation off of cost effectiveness. So I think you all who apply are aware of how the cost effectiveness works. The Air District sets thresholds for cost effectiveness for various different types of projects and develops calculations for each of those types of projects. And so we're proposing to just use that. All projects, you know, need to meet the threshold, but if there's competition among projects, we are proposing to go with the project that is more cost effective. With the idea to, you know, hopefully have fewer but larger projects per year, and kind of streamline the process. So David, did I miss anything big? I think
I think you covered it well, Dana. And like you said, we're really looking at trying to fund the most cost-effective projects, given the difficulty of trying to achieve the cost effectiveness requirements, replacing cleaner buses with cleaner buses. It's just becoming more and more difficult for the transit operators to use these funds for bus replacements other than very small amounts. And the administrative burden that goes with that, I don't know if it's worth really everyone's time to continue that. That's why we're proposing shifting to the entirely competitive process, and Dan and I are available for any questions that you may have.
So I had a question. So technically, buses are still eligible, but they're just scoring lower and lower. So realistically, they wouldn't be competitive at this point compared to other projects.
you know, I mean, they still could be, but, you know, I think that the way we've had a set amount going to each local bus operator and trying to kind of backfill that amount by bus, you know, small amounts going to multiple bus purchases, it's becoming less effective. You know, bus purchases can still meet the criteria. I think you need more match funding for it now than you did before. And as you're replacing newer buses, it is becoming less cost, or, you know, that it may not meet those thresholds as you kind of get over, once you replace your very oldest buses, right?
What types of projects are the most cost effective for us?
You know, our TDM projects have scored well, although they're,
What is that specifically?
so we've been funding the Sonoma Commute Rewards and Emergency Ride Home Program. It's relatively small amounts of funding needed for those programs, but that has scored well.
We've also seen some bicycle facilities on high use corridors that score well. Really depends on the length of the bicycle facility and the number of daily trips in that corridor for vehicles. That's how the cost effectiveness is calculated. As Dana mentioned, we are still able to fund bus replacements, but it's really just either funding very small amounts so that your cost effectiveness score is still pretty high for that, or it's split across 2 or even 3 buses. It really just depends on the project, and in recent years, we usually have been getting maybe 3 bus replacement projects from the operators, a couple bike and ped projects from a couple of cities. It hasn't been a lot of applications, but we're hopeful that we'll have some bigger projects come in with this new process that we're requesting your consideration.
And I know you're proposing to not do the off the top anymore to us, but now everything's fully competitive, like transit is competing with bike for the entire pot. There's no transit percent allocation from the pod or anything like that proposed.
Yeah, that is the recommendation. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, have Jared or Rachel, have you not, do you use this money for bus purchases, Jared? I know that.
I mean, typically that's been our preferred use for this actually, because we always need funds for it. And from our point of view, it's easier to administer that type of program than a staff intensive type program and constantly do the reimbursements for that. And I think that was even some of the feedback. I think when they did this cycle like a year or so ago, I think they listed feedback. And I think that was some of the feedback we provided, but I don't think they went down that path, but that's been our approach with it.
And Rachel, you purchase buses, right? And
Yeah,
so
we've
we all
also-
still meet the cost effectiveness, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've also used it, I just want to add for our fare free program for youth before with the CR, and actually we've used it with the CRF funds to top off the program as well. So it's been and that's actually something I want to come back to, but I want, after you finish your comment.
Yeah, and I think, Rachel, as I recall, the fare free program has been fairly cost effective. Right?
I think so,
Easy
yeah.
to meet that criteria.
Well, the point I'd like to make is just that, buying buses these days are not getting any cheaper. It's just getting more and more expensive. And even though it's a relatively small portion, we still really rely on TFCA to make the whole potpourri of buying a bus work.
It's a local match.
Yeah, it serves as a local match for federal funding and some other sources. So really, I'm not sure we support this until such time that we just simply can't meet the cost effectiveness. Until we get there, I think that it makes sense to open it up to everybody, but we still meet the cost effectiveness. It's still very important for us. We have a mandate through CARB to buy EVs. And so it would hurt us not to have this funding every year, although it seems like a small amount. Like I said, it all bakes into the cake, potpourri of funding it's $1.4 million for a 40-foot electric vehicle bus right now. So I would encourage the group that we hear that it's kind of coming down the line. It's not here yet. So this kind of gives us a heads up, but that until such time that we just don't meet the cost effectiveness, I would encourage that we still have on the top set aside for transit vehicles, for the 3 transit operators.
Ask your question. Do you still use this for marketing?
We have in past cycles, but not currently now.
Yeah,
We switched from doing marketing programs to bus ones. As I mentioned, it's been easier to administer.
well, the marketing became very challenging. The air district, wanted to see
I want to see ridership increases.
ridership increases from the marketing, and
I remember making very generous assumptions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
assumptions.
generous.
More and
You're
more,
right, you're
so.
right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it is so rare to have a dedicated source of transit funding like this that's flexible, even though it seems small in the big picture. And also to not have a situation where the transit division is having to compete against public works. For the money.
I agree with that. I kind of prefer the approach we've had before with the off the top and still having that competitive pot. Even if we're not applying for buses, as is our kind of preferred method we've heard, it's still helpful to have that dedicated known funding source, to your point, Emily, coming in, which is hard to get for transit.
I should note, I believe we started talking about this change back in 2020 when Go Cinema was passed. There was going to be additional transit funding going to be available, and I think At the time, this predated my time, but Dana, you may remember, there were discussions about this change coming down the line, and we've been talking about this for a couple of years now, just to add that background context.
The change in terms of the buses or the change in terms of the allocation with off the top versus competitive?
The change in terms to switching to a competitive process.
So just to chime in, you know, I agree with all that's been said, but, you know, I also recognize what SCTA is trying to accomplish. And so, you know, we were brainstorming some thoughts and, you know, I think, I think there are some potential benefits to having more flexibility in terms of how the program is administered. But I wonder about, you know, this is a big change, you know, it's $250,000 a year in our budget every year. It's not nothing that, you know, I worry that if projects are being evaluated solely on cost effectiveness, does transit get shut out altogether? Like I could see that happening and that's very concerning to me. So I'm wondering if, especially because this is a pretty significant transition, you know, could the next step be that there's a kind of a floor or a target for transit? And, you know, maybe 1 year Sonoma County Transit, Petaluma has a bigger project and, you know, we kind of coordinate as we do with other funding sources in terms of who's going or, you know, so just so maybe transit projects could be evaluated against transit projects and bike ped projects are evaluated against bike ped projects, but we're at least maintaining some ability to ensure that transit has a piece of this, you know, really important pie. So that's one thought we had. I think the other thing that that we thought about that, you know, I think relates to a very specific problem that City Bus has coming into the next budget year, which is that the Go Sonoma money for fare-free transit won't cover our youth program costs. And so we have a gap of between like $90,000 to $100,000 a year in our budget. We would be looking to a program like TFCA, where this type of program has scored really well and maybe would continue to score well if it's leveraging Go Sonoma funds for, you know, a very successful ridership generating program. So, you know, what would be ideal for us is to be able to say, hey, could we apply for 3 years worth of gap funding, right, to continue that program so that we have certainty about that money in our operating budget more than year to year, right, for a program. So, you know, I think that's an example of, I think, of a potential benefit to having a more flexible way of allocating the money where we could come in for those types of projects and potentially apply, if it works for SCTA, for multiple years of funding and have some certainty around it. So I don't know if the other operators in that situation specifically with fare free, but I know that we are, and we're not sure right now how we're closing that gap between Go Sonoma and what it costs us to run that program. So that's something we thought about specifically for City Bus in the context of this discussion. That would be beneficial. So those are just a couple thoughts.
Thanks for that, Rachel. I guess I am curious if folks were to apply for electric bus purchases for the next fiscal year, if, you know, you have in mind, are there planning to buy buses this next fiscal year? Do you know how many? Do you have a sense of, you know, how many or what year you're replacing and how many like would be eligible for this funding?
We definitely do. We have need to replace 4 cutaways and 3 fixed route buses and purchase all those within the next 18 months. So we have needs. But I think we would go back and talk about if we still want to apply for buses and fleet or do another program like maybe the TNC subsidy program or other ideas like that. But yes, in terms of fleet, we kind of know the need for those replacements and they're coming up soon on the calendar.
I know that for us, I was talking to Sean, and Sean would be the best person to answer this your question, Dana, because he's looking at it like forensically. But I know that it is, as you guys know, I mean, we've been working with David, you know, on this last grant, and it's getting harder and harder just because of the funding mix we have play at this time to make cost effectiveness work for electric. So we're buying a lot of buses, but the extent to which we can fully program our TFCA to electric buses is a question, which is honestly part of the reason why, it works well that we're still kind of, looking at a potential use of TFCA for the Fare Free program, because that does tend to be a better fit. So anyway, so I'm not going to say that we have an easy way to program all those TFCA funds for buses, because in the short term, I don't think City Bus does. So we acknowledge that challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't expect a full exact answer about
Yeah.
their bus replacements
Well,
right now, but.
I'm just curious, so, David, Dana, like, is there potential consideration of other factors other than strictly cost effectiveness in program evaluation? If this were to go to a purely competitive program, could there be some other evaluation criteria that kind of help maintain some modal equity, or other factors that are of importance to this group? I mean, is that something that y'all would consider?
Or like community equity, like how much of the parts of the county is everyone getting some?
Sure,
who's
yeah,
getting
yeah.
some? Yeah.
So we have had the thought previously of rolling this program along with TDA Article 3 and with our larger SCTA funding program, which you would be competing directly with public works departments for a multitude of funding sources,
Right.
of which Jared was successful in receiving 2 million for operations funds from Go Sonoma. Given the administration around TFCA and how the Bay Area Air Quality Management District does it kind of an annual program, it's harder for us to do a multi-year call for projects like we do for the SCTA funding program. So that's why we've kept TFCA separate.
Mhm.
We could roll some of those scoring criteria in, and then I think the cost effectiveness score is one of the things that we include in that scoring process as well. But it's just a matter of how much more administrative burden do we want to put on this very small program?
Yeah.
I mean, right now, the application process for TFCA is very simple, in my opinion. We have the cost effectiveness calculator and a Word document that you have to fill out. If we talk about adding more scoring criteria, it's going to get more and more burdensome for not a lot of money.
Mhm.
Yeah, we are here to receive feedback, so all of this is appreciated.
Yeah, I think, I'll just come back around. I mean, if this is the direction the program's heading, I think I'll just reiterate, if there's a way to protect to some extent, or, or recognize the fact that this has been a key part of transit budgets for, going on 20 years, that maybe there could be a phased approach where there is some target or floor for transit, even within the competitive program. I think that would be helpful. I mean, things are tight. We had some years where we had, the COVID relief coming in, and things have just gotten super tight. And I think we're all staring that down right now, especially with the costs of the electrification transition. So, I don't know if there's an answer there, but I do think that could be helpful as we kind of transition this program potentially.
I agree. I mean, I've kind of given my thoughts. I kind of prefer to have some certainty of that funding for transit. I'm still nervous about the thing being fully competitive with transit against other pods, and transit losing out altogether. That would be a concern. And again, I like having the certainty of that funding source that's been in place for decades for transit, which is hard to come by. So I kind of prefer the approach we had versus what's proposed.
Well, I think the next steps for this process are to have a discussion with our technical advisory committee. And I think we're trying to get something to our board in February for the February meeting, so that we can inform the call for projects. We are asking for an action, so if somebody wants to make I wrote, I have good notes on what everybody's talked about, but if somebody wants to make a particular, or a more specific, motion.
And just before that motion, I should note that 2006 policy, I think, was as a result of compromise based on pushback from the transit operators. So we may here. Appreciate the feedback and happy to take any direction you may have before we go to the technical advisory committee. And I encourage you all to attend that meeting as well to give your feedback there.
Well, I'll make a motion that we continue to use the TFCA program as it is today. And understanding that we're kind of getting a heads up that EV bus purchases are not going to be as cost effective in the future and may not qualify for the funding. But until such time, I think we all still rely on it. And so I'd like to continue with the program as it is. I thought that's a long motion, isn't it?
I'll second that. And then also if someone can provide at that meeting or other ones, kind of the additional context and a summarization of the discussion to go along with it. I second.
Okay. Any opposed to the motion and the second?
Well, I'll just make I'm not going to oppose that, but I do think there's room for some further discussion about, kind of to my lengthy rambling comment. I do think there are some benefits to more flexibility in the way the funds are distributed to all of us. And so I think I understand why SCTA is proposing this change because of the struggles that, we definitely have had as City of Us with this funding source. And I do think there are some potential benefits to being able to do something like, the example I gave for City Bus to come and apply for multiple years of gap funding for the youth program. That'd be awesome. So I think I'm not going to oppose that motion, but I think there's opportunities to maybe thread this needle and provide some assurance for the transit operators that we're going to be able to continue to access these funds, but then build some additional flexibility in to make this program work better for SCTA and all of us. So that's my lengthy little addendum. So I don't think we need to consider this the end of the discussion at all.
Well, I mean, and some feedback, we'll get feedback from the Air District and from the SCTA on how we did this year with our bus, how the cost effectiveness did. And so we can maybe have a tally of how we're doing and, where we are seeing ourselves end up in a year or so, but we can do that this year and continue to look at it and make adjustments as necessary. If we need to stop applying for buses, then because they're not cost effective, then that's where we are. But I don't think we're there yet.
Well, thank you all. That was a very good input. Yeah, and we will, continue the conversation with the PAC and that you all could be part of that conversation as well. All right. Item on the agenda. Tanya, you're up.
All right,
Yes.
thank
IRA elective pay program.
Ready to go, Drew? Awesome. All right. Excuse me. So thank you, Dana, for including this on the agenda for today. And before I start in through the slides, I'm curious if anyone is looking at or has used the elective pay program, because I think it is definitely a potential solution for funding needs that we have in the transit space. So wanted to share a high-level overview with you today. You'll see on this first slide, I have to include the disclaimer that these materials have been adapted from various presentations that an organization called the Lawyers for Good Government has put together. And they're one of the organizations that's really trying to provide support to jurisdictions, to local government and nonprofits to take advantage of this tax credit program. But I do need to state that none of this information is providing legal advice to you. So it really is for informational purposes only, and hopefully will be helpful to you if it's something that you decide to pursue with your own legal counsel and staff support. So first, what is elective pay? Oh, here I'm changing the wrong slide. It's also referred to as direct pay. So you may have heard of it referred to in that way as well. And this is a program through the Inflation Reduction Act that essentially allows tax exempt entities who typically have not filed taxes. You don't have to file taxes as a local government, but it allows you to file a tax return and get access to a variety of different tax credits. And there is a wealth of information online that goes into much more detail than I have in these slides about the various tax credits that are available through this program. But essentially, you could theoretically get tax credits for up to 70% of the cost of your clean energy and clean vehicles projects. This is essentially an uncapped program, so there's no upper limit to the number of tax credits that can be filed and funded through the IRS. Covers a diverse array of technologies. And then there's a variety of adder incentives that can be used, like Buy America, prevailing wage, that will allow you to go above kind of the starting point of the tax credit, depending on the type of credit that you're going after. So it's definitely something that I would encourage all of our local jurisdictions and agencies to take a look at as a potential way of bringing in more funding for your clean energy projects. So this slide shows the most common project types in the public sector. So depending on the tax credit, you can see that it can potentially be used for EV infrastructure placement. There are some requirements about that infrastructure being placed in non-urban or low-income areas. Example projects under the qualified commercial vehicles, tying into your previous discussion, public transit buses, electric buses would be eligible for this tax credit. And then on the right-hand side, the investment tax credits for renewable electricity production tax credit and the energy investment tax credit, and then some examples of the types of projects that could be applied for in that category are listed on the slide. So great opportunities here to bring in additional funding. On the surface, the process looks fairly straightforward. There's a pre-filing requirement. So the IRS requires you to go to a website and make a filing for your project in advance. You'll get a registration number, and then that's what you'll use through the rest of the process. Then the filings themselves. So depending on the tax credit that you're applying for, there's a variety of different forms that need to be filled out. And of course, a timeline in terms of when those forms would need to be filed. And then at the end of the process, you would receive your payment. Could be up to a year or more after the project is placed into service. So that's something that you need to keep in mind, and also would need to have a plan for kind of where does that money go? How is that money going to be spent? And I've heard, as an example, heard a presentation from someone in the city of Denver who's actually looking at setting up some type of a revolving loan fund. So as these credits, the money comes in, they are building a pot of funds that could then be used to fund future clean energy projects. And then here is just the recommended steps. So you want to figure out what your kind of filing timeline or deadline. Are you going to file in a calendar year or a fiscal year? So looking at when your project was completed, and if you have projects that were completed in either calendar or fiscal year 24, you could apply for a tax credit for those projects. So, and I'll share a bit more about the deadlines on the next slide. So I mentioned the pre-filing requirement. There's a portal that you go to do that pre-filing, and then of course the required forms, and at the end of the process, getting your money. And here's some information about the filing deadlines. The general rule is 4.5 months after the end of the tax year that your project was completed, and there is an opportunity to file for an extension. So we've got two examples. First example, if you're looking at filing on a calendar year, so January 2024 to December 2024, and for example, you had a project that was completed, put into service in August of that year, then your first deadline to file would be May 15th of 2025. And you could also file an extension to be able to submit before November 15th of 2025, with the caveat that you would need to put that extension request form in by the original deadline. So you need to at least know that you need an extension by May 15th to make that filing. And then the second example is looking at a fiscal tax year, so July 2024 to June 2025. So for a project completed in that time frame, your first filing deadline would be November 15th of 2025, and then you could file for an extension to May 15th of 2026. As I mentioned, there's a lot of resources online. There's a pretty nice online tool, and I've got the link here on the slide, that provides a number of resources, tools that help you determine, is your project even eligible for a tax credit? It has, many different resources, documents, webinars, et cetera, and in some cases, a link to get direct pro bono services. This is a new area for local governments who are not used to filing taxes. And so, you may have questions and need additional support, but it's really designed to be a one-stop shop for you to get information about how to file for these tax credits. And then I've also included links to a number of online worksheets that can also help you kind of walk through and do your planning around the different types of projects that you're considering, and do they qualify or not. So that's a helpful tool, including a mapping tool. So you can see if you're looking at EV infrastructure, is that infrastructure within a geographical location that would be eligible for the tax credit.
Cool.
And then lastly, two additional links here. So there's a elective pay and IRA tax incentives resources page that has tons of information, including past webinars that have walked through this information. And then a fairly recent document that was produced, I believe, by the Lawyers for Good Government, that talks about the impact of the 2024 elections. And, there's a lot of questions about how, our climate change, clean energy projects and programs will be impacted. And this is a nice document that kind of walks through, what about a project that was put into service in 2024? Is that still going to be eligible for a tax credit? And the answer is yes, because that falls within the current tax regulations. And there's a fair amount of certainty that projects put into service in 2025 would be eligible. And then beyond that, there could be changes made to the federal tax code that would, take that ability away, or have an impact on it in terms of which tax credits you could apply for. So that's what we know at this point, and certainly we'd keep you posted as we learn more. And then lastly, I wanted to mention that we are working with our partners in a couple different counties to organize a workshop, which is scheduled for February 24th from 11 to noon. It will be remote. And this will be a workshop where we're going to have someone who's much more of an expert in this topic than I am to give, essentially this information, but in more depth. And then we're going to have a small panel of folks who've actually gone through the process, who can share with you, here's what we did, here's what we learned, best practices, things to watch out for. So we're hoping it'll be a way to provide some more tangible information that you could use if you want to pursue this yourselves. And we're saying the target audience is really anyone who's has responsibility for implementing a clean energy project. Also recommend finance directors, legal counsel. One of the things that I learned about this as a best practice is that you really want to look at putting a team together to apply for these tax credits. So don't feel like you should go it on your own. You really want to have a team from your agency that's working on going through the process. And the only local organization that I'm aware of that's even started down this path is the County of Sonoma. They've been looking into this opportunity for some of their projects. I don't know how far they've gotten in the process. I don't think they've actually filed for a tax credit yet, but that's one potential local example that I'm aware of. So I think that concludes my presentation, and I welcome any questions or comments that you all have. Thank you.
Thank you. That was not on my radar at all. It's really helpful.
Are you gonna send this out afterwards?
Yeah, it's in the packet, and
It's
yeah,
linked
yeah, it should be in the, I think.
Yeah, it's in there.
Yeah, so you should have access to all the links. So.
Thank you.
What department with the County of Sonoma is?
Well, I know Marcus Clark, who's formerly from the Climate Action Resiliency Division, And I don't know who else he's working with at the county, but I think they're looking at for some of their municipal energy upgrade projects that they have going on.
Do you know, would Sonoma Clean Power be eligible? And do you know if they're intending to apply?
I don't know. I haven't heard any mention that they're planning to apply. I could check with Brent. But they don't actually do, that I'm aware of, any actual installations. You know, they're providing funding for projects. So whether they could apply for the tax credit or the agency that they're working with to implement, but that's a great question.
Thank you.
Well, great. If it works for you, please plan on attending that workshop. We'll record it as well. So if you can't make it, we'll make it available as
Awesome.
well. Okay, so thank you.
So much, Tanya.
Great.
All right, up next, we have the comprehensive transportation plan, project update from Chris.
Great, thanks, Dana. And I'd like to start out with just thanking everyone for getting in project submissions and updating your existing projects for the comprehensive transportation plan project list. So just wanted to provide a quick update on kind of how many projects were submitted and what the next steps are. So what the schedule is. So we had close to 100 new projects submitted. So that's the most new projects we've seen in the last few CTP cycles. So I'm currently working on processing the updates to existing projects and those 100-ish new projects. So hope to have a draft updated project list go out to committees, including this committee, in February. So including the new projects and the project updates. So that list will be coming to the T-TAC, also the Technical Advisory Committee and the CVPAC, with a goal of taking a draft project list to our board in March for tentative approval. Once we have that, we'll go ahead and do our performance assessment where we look at future conditions and, you know, how the proposed projects perform. We'll be working on developing our draft CTP, including the content, and having a draft together later this fall, probably October, receiving some comment on that, and then shooting for a final CTP by the end of the year. So that's where we're at right now. So yeah, next month we'll have at least the transit projects. I'll work on prioritizing those so we can have those at the T-TAC and that extra week because is that Lincoln's birthday? That'll be helpful. There's a lot. Yeah, it's a big volume this time around. So thank you for all the project submissions. I may be reaching out as I'm working through those with any questions. So thanks for submitting those. So that's the update. Happy to answer any other questions.
Thanks for all your help, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super helpful
Yeah.
navigating
Yeah.
all the.
Sorry about all the projects we submitted, Chris. Thank you.
You guys went big, that's right.
Yeah, I'm glad to have this.
Got stuff going on. It's visioning. It's planning. It's what planning is.
Exactly. We want to have ideas, you know, the CTP is a place for big ideas for the
Yeah, it
future,
is.
right?
Yeah.
So happy to have those and include them in the plan. So.
Thanks, Chris.
Mhm.
All right, next on the agenda is transit integration updates. And we have regional meetings report outs first, so we'll just focus this on the local bus integration. We are, it looks like, moving forward finally with the next phase of the website integration. The contractor took a little longer than we thought to start up, but I think that that's moving forward. And hoping to wrap that up the end of the fiscal year. Yeah, we've put together a kind of high level work plan for the year and are talking today about Clipper Bay Pass. And that's all I have for this. Does anybody have anything else? A lot of regional stuff going on.
Yeah.
I think, so more focus there.
For sure.
All right, then let's move on to regional meetings report outs. And we have under here report out on MTC Plan Bay Area 2050 plus and Transit 2050 plus. And then other other regional meetings that are relevant, so.
There's a lot to cover. Unplanned Bay Area finally. You want me to take the first stab at it?
Go for it. I'm just, yeah.
Let's see. So it sounds like this Friday, the MPC Planning Committee will be voting on an update to, I guess, equity priority communities and the PDA map and all that good stuff that goes into Plan Bay Area
Project list.
and the project list.
Yep,
Okay.
that's a big one.
The Plan Bay Area project list or the Transit 2050?
Plan Bay
plus?
Area.
It's the Plan Bay area.
That one,
Yeah.
okay. And I don't know what the changes in Sonoma County are, but I know in Marin County, Marin City was added back in as an EPC because they're expanding the definition to the most recent 2 American community surveys rather than just the most recent one. Let's see, and then on Transit 2050 plus, we're going to have an in-person workshop on the 21st. Also, there were some changes to the project list, so it looks like Smart to Cloverdale is now in bin 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's going
and-
on Friday to the
Yeah.
planning commission.
Yeah, okay, so Transit will also, Transit 2050 will also go there. And then I guess there was some scale back of the Sonoma County bus
Mhm.
item, but I don't know any details on that. Our meeting is tomorrow, so that's probably when I'll find out the information.
I have some detail on that,
Oh.
so, yeah. So,
Good job,
yeah,
buddy.
Smart to Cloverdale is on the final list that's going to the planning committee on Friday. So it was a battle. It's finally in there. So thank you so much for working with us to identify those high priority routes. So based on our submissions, Adam Knowlton came back and all of the high priority routes are included in the project still. The moderate and lower priority have dropped off, but I'm keeping all that information so we can resubmit next RTP. And so definitely don't want to lose that. So there were a few other highway and interchange projects that dropped off as well. So the Petaluma Rainier crossing is dropped off. And then the Hearn Avenue interchange project is removed. It's under
When you say
construction.
dropped off, do you mean of which bin? Because aren't there 2 bins?
It's
You mean dropped
completely,
out of the plan completely or?
mhm, yeah, completely off the list. And the Hearn Avenue interchange is completely off. It's under construction, so it doesn't need to be in there. And then the Arata Lane Highway 101 interchange as well, which is pretty far away from implementation. So we're holding on to that. It's kind of covered under a programmatic category for, highway improvements. The cost in there is really low, so we're planning on resubmitting once it's closer to implementation. So yeah, so that's where things are at. So a lot of work over the last 2 or 3 months to get that together. So yeah, that's where things are at.
So
Did
great.
the,
Sorry,
oh,
Karen.
sorry.
No, go ahead, Jared.
Did the entire low and medium pots drop off and everything on high advance?
Yeah.
Like those particular projects you mentioned, were those in low and medium pots like Rainier?
So the prioritization we worked on were just the routes, the bus highway improvement
Right.
routes. Rainier was, we checked in with Petaluma Public Works staff on that, it's not in the current proposed general plan, so so that's dropped. And it will potentially drop also from our CTP, so we'll see what the decision is there.
Okay.
But I have a list of the routes here that are in the high category, if you'd like just a quick summary of what
And
that
then
is.
is that in bin 1, that whole, you're talking about routes within a single project?
Yes,
Which is in bin 1, right?
yes.
But it's just getting scaled back.
So it was scaled back and not like bumped, the second tier wasn't bumped to bin 2, it was just taken out completely.
Yeah, Sonoma County is still in bin 1.
Yeah.
Sonoma County local bus.
It
Yeah,
would,
we all have different projects in each low, medium, high.
Yeah.
Different routes.
So, so rapid bus corridors for Santa Rosa and Petaluma are in there. City bus routes 2, 2B, 3, 4, 4B are in. Sonoma County Transit Route 20, 44, 46, and 60. Sonoma County Transit Route 30. And then Petaluma Transit Routes 2 and 3 are still in the high category. Yeah. Okay. So.
Chris, that's consistent. You sent us, following our meeting, you had sent us kind of a spreadsheet, and so I assume that's
It's the
consistent, same
yeah,
one. Okay,
same spreadsheet.
great.
So if you need that again, let me know. I can
Okay.
resend it. But yeah, just search for my name. It should be, I think December we did
Right.
the prioritization. So. Yeah, and we'll be doing this again in 4 or 5 years, so we can resubmit with those other routes as well as those are still, if they're still priorities.
It's gonna be start.
I was
again a
gonna
lot
say,
sooner than
try,
that.
try like one.
Yeah.
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 They could be lucky to get a break.
Right.
And wasn't this a minor update?
Yeah, this was.
The next one's a major
This
update.
isn't, yeah, so even though Transit 2050 plus was a major thing,
Yeah.
the RTP, they're gonna do like who knows what, because it'll be a major update.
Yeah, and Rena's involved, which ups.
So they'll definitely be starting like day after tomorrow.
Yeah, it was looking like fall, late fall for final adoption, so I would assume that come
Mhm.
January 1st, 2026.
Kick off the next update.
They don't even take a week off. Huh?
Need a holiday. For the workshop that's on the 21st for Transit 2050 plus, that's when we'll, I think, start working on the supplemental report. Transit 2050 plus was new for this cycle, and I would say it didn't quite go how we expected, although, within the bounds of Plan Bay Area, it probably went as well as it could have.
Yeah.
But we'll see how it goes. And then for the next update, which will be a full refresh, we'll see if transit is still like, if there's a Plan Bay Area 2060 and a Transit 2060, or if it looks some other way. We'll see.
We did put in some effort to advocating to get mascots mentioned somewhere in the RTP and were rejected. But I think maybe it's now mentioned as an example in some project. I actually can't remember the latest, because I think Stephanie Moulton Peters might have actually brought it up at the commission level. I'd have to look up what the final resolution is, but it's not a standalone project. But there was this concept of a transit supplemental report,
Yeah.
and they were gonna. So what's the status of that?
So that's the thing that we'll be starting kind of work on the 21st. And I don't know the details of what's going into that. I don't know if that's been worked out yet.
Do they have any consultant funds left to do it?
I mean, they looked under the couch cushion for
Exactly.
$1 million or $2 to get whatever modeling work they needed done for Pine Bay Area. So budget never seems to be a problem for MPC. So we'll find out. Actually, there is still the network performance assessment that needs to be done as well, which was that holistic look at all of the projects, which was, I think, a key element of Transit 2050 plus that I think there was an expectation for, and it is kind of the existing Plan Bay Area process sort of ended up dictating how everything went. And so that's kind of where that conflict is, I think. And that's something that we'll resolve this year, it looks like. And for Transit 2060, if there is one, maybe things will look a little different. And yeah, I'm not surprised mascot's not really mentioned, because there's a point in time where they're looking at everything, and it's mascots came after that. So then the Sonoma local bus and the Golden Gate projects start to not make sense if you try to do like iterative updates. So
No, I understand why. I'm just saying.
well, yeah, it's it's always the challenge with these 4-year cycles that are never ending, right? Picking
Where's
that
the
spot.
cutoff?
And Golden Gate, where did the Golden Gate end up in the bins?
I think we got, here, let me look, I have it up. I
you
think we
had
got
two
moved to
projects,
bin
right?
2, but let me double check. I know we got bumped around a few times. Yeah, we got moved to bin 2 for both the bus and the ferry projects.
And they were both frequency boost projects?
Yes, well, they were both service projects, but the ferry did include a new route to Mission Bay, technically.
You didn't have anything that made the cut on your end?
Anything to what?
That made the cut?
Oh, that was cut off?
No, that made it pass?
No, it's all in bin 2. We got moved, all of the Golden Gate projects got moved from bin 1 to bin 2, but didn't drop off the list.
Okay.
The very first iteration had us dropped off, and then they moved us back in as bin 2. And I think we did a minor reduction in some of the bus and ferry scope. I can't remember, it's been a while since we worked with Adam on that. Okay. And it'll look a lot different in the next iteration.
Yeah. And bin 2 is 2035, post 2035,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
And bin 1 is
Now,
2025 to 2030. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, I found it. They did add it mascots as an example project under other investments to enhance transit reliability, frequency and capacity. So it's now listed as an example project in a
Exemplary.
bucket.
Really?
Okay. Do you have a number
Given that
for
we're-
that, the
we're
project
trying-
number?
Let's see, 25-T11-141.
Okay, thanks. That helps.
Right, there's no more regional meeting report outs.
I'll just mention, I was gonna do this as part of the city bus update, but since it's regional, to my knowledge, we're still on track to have the regional wayfinding signage installed in Santa Rosa at the Smart Station and Transit Mall and in between at the end of the month. towards the end of the
In
month.
this month that we are in.
The very
January.
month of January.
Yes, seems to
Yes.
be when they're doing it.
Right, so that's exciting.
Mhm.
So once we have kind of a date certain on that and understand the time frame, we'll, we probably gonna have a walk around in association with the mascots meeting in GM meeting in February, but there will be other opportunities to get together and discuss, so we'll.
They're offering to do tours once it's in.
I've seen a lot of traffic for the
El Cerrito,
Yeah,
yeah.
the MTC just scheduled the three of them,
Yeah.
walkthroughs, for later this month.
We should tell them the 14th date, since getting those GMs together is challenging.
Oh, I did.
Okay, great.
No,
Put
for
a shit on
sure.
it.
And Gordon said, no problem.
Great.
Gordon
So-
said, I think we could come up that evening to give you a tour. I was like, 4 o'clock, is that the evening?
And it's Valentine's Day, so maybe.
So maybe
Poor
like
guy.
noon to 2.
Maybe that is a little bit much to ask.
I do
Run that by
think,
your honey.
yeah, I do think it should be midday tour.
Too late.
lunch tour.
We can give it to ourselves.
It doesn't
if
have to
we
be
need
the only tour, right? I mean,
Yeah.
right, so, yeah, but yes. I thought I had something else on that, but it's escaping me right now. Anyway, so we'll keep you all posted, but it's exciting.
You said by the end of the month?
Yeah.
On regional mapping and wayfinding, we did also, I can't remember if we talked about this in December, but we did kick off the Larkspur pilot. It's not Sonoma County. but
Yes,
it
we
is
did.
North Bay.
Mhm.
Very cool. So going back to wayfinding for a second, I mean, one thing we have been discussing internally is, for Golden Gate, Sonoma County, MTA riders, it's gonna be a change, right? Things are gonna look different in the transit mall, and so we wanna make sure we're working with you all to get information out to riders like, yeah, it's just gonna look different. I think most riders who have a routine will be fine. They're gonna stand in the same place they always stand, but I also know for some of our riders, it could be more disorienting, so let's all keep in community. Once we really have a time frame, we'll let you know, but this is just sort of a heads up, it's coming quick.
Yeah.
So. More to
So-
come.
So far, we haven't really at least received any negative customer feedback from El Cerrito, so people seem to be
Rolling
figuring it
with it.
out, I guess.
Good.
And the same goes for the QR code pilot along Route 580.
Mhm.
So all of those signs are up. And
Good.
I have not yet received any feedback.
Awesome.
On that. So the passengers are having difficulty.
I have one other thing on Transit 2050 plus. I do think it would be good to clarify at the beginning of this transit supplemental report discussion, how it's feeding into to 2060. Because otherwise this is just insane. To do I do think the vision was that this is where you do the comprehensive thing. And if that's not feeding directly into what they then plan to do as transit, I mean, it's gonna probably take the rest of the year to do the supplemental report, presuming, I mean, who knows? But I do think it would be a good clarifying question for their team, even if they haven't thought through it already, to ask them to think through it, because otherwise I don't understand what the point is. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah.
All right. We should move on to transit operator updates.
Hey, Dana? If everybody doesn't mind, if I could start off, I've got to leave a bit early.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So Brian wanted me to mention that the TDA fund has seen another drop, the 7th quarter in drop in funds. So sorry to jump out on that note. But just wanted to give you a heads up. He's going to put together a coordinated claim within the next week.
You don't know the magnitude of the drop, do you?
I don't. No. but it is a drop. It hasn't turned around.
Right.
And then other than that, you know, we've got buses in queue on order and we're still working on our EV charging station. That should be ready within the next couple of months. We got the switchboard, I think they call it, which is the essential piece of equipment. And we're going to install that pretty soon. So it's coming along. Sorry, I have to duck out. Thanks.
Steven.
Yeah.
All right, Jared, do you want to go next?
Yeah, for Petaluma, so we did our toy drive and food drive on December 7th. That went well. We had really good turnout. We were down by the Copeland Transit Mall and actually by the Smart Station. I know Smart and several other agencies did their same toy drives on that day.
Did you get a lot of toys?
Maria, do you know how many toys approximately we got?
I didn't count, but we filled the bin, which was good. It was better turnout than the year before.
I would say about 24 from the eyeball approximately.
Better turnout than the year before is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Improved.
Luma Ice, the last day was yesterday, so hopefully everyone had their chance to go for the season. But that was really exciting. Our fixed route buses, they actually start line production next week, our 4 new flyer buses. So hopefully we'll be getting those in about 3 to 4 months. We're talking with them tomorrow to refine the timeline a bit on that. For our transit yard improvements, it's coming along. Our chargers all arrived, our charge point chargers this week. So we have those on hand. And then we're finalizing everything with our electric switch gear, some final changes, and should have that bid in a few weeks or so. So we're getting close to the finish line on that. In terms of ridership, our fixed route ridership was up for November 2024. It was up 22% compared to the prior November. And paratransit was up 23% from the prior November. On the fixed route side, we're at about 90% of pre-COVID ridership recovery. So that's good news. Maria, did you have other items you want to update?
Not too much. Lumago is doing well. Petaluma Transit will be presenting about microtransit at a Bay Area Summit. I'll put it in the chat on January 30th. Building equitable and cost-effective mobility through smart service design, but it is definitely a microtransit focus. So if anybody's interested, please hang out with me because I'll be there. We've hit over 100 rides a day, and now we're kind of not consistently getting there, but on Lumago. So that's been great, and we're thinking about next steps. So if there's ever any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. And Steve has a question in the chat, Jared, about our connections to the amazing new station opening up on Friday. So,
yeah, which I'm sure Emily will talk more about. But one other thing on Lumago, we're also looking at adding a second vehicle during peak times starting in a couple of weeks because we have had such good response to it. So that's exciting. So Steve, your question, I can't quite see it exactly, but generally Route 2 does connect to the new Petaluma North Station. We have a bus stop there on North McDowell, right near the intersection of Corona. Right now, Route 2 is the bus that serves that. So it hits it 20-minute frequency at peak times, 30-minute off. Although we're looking to add improved frequency, we have a grant around May through the summer at some point is when we're looking to add that. So we're currently working through the different elements of that right now. And then as future phases, Maria alluded to with Lumago, looking at other parts of the city, especially that area being kind of a high priority area is one of the ones we consider for additional service on that as well. I couldn't see your question, Steve. Did that answer what you had?
It does. Thank you.
No problem. And that's it for Petaluma.
These flyers that you're getting, I'm assuming are electric,
Yeah.
35 or 40 footers.
2 of each, 240, 235. These will be our first electric buses overall, so hopefully we have
I
good
know
luck with.
it's not reflective of current conditions, but what was your lead time? Was it like 18 months?
I would say 15 to 16, although it seems to be getting longer. I know some people that are getting Gilligs are getting quoted like 2 years at this point. New Flyer, whenever I asked them recently, they're quoting about 15, 16 months.
Rachel.
Okay, well, continue on the electric bus theme. We now have 6 Gillig 40-foot buses on order in addition to our 6 new flyers. We're hedging our bets, so 6 and 6. So we're maybe in a fortunate situation with Gillig because they had a cancellation, the size of our order. They might be able to slot us in and get us buses by the end of the year,
Wow.
which would be amazing. So like, just, knock wood. Because we desperately need buses, as you all know. And the new flyers would be kind of Q2 of 26. So they're coming, which is really great. And then in conjunction with those buses, we're doing good on charging infrastructure with our phase 1 station, but we're beginning work on our phase 2 expansion, just looking forward to some of those, the additional bus buys out there. So that work is getting going. It's gonna be a little bit more of a intensive project, given we have to trench across the city yard and we need to coordinate all this with, the city fleet electrification master plan. So there's a lot of work going on there with our team to coordinate all those efforts. Yeah, I think that's all that I have for now here post-holiday.
Thanks.
Well, we're opening Petaluma North on Friday. Very exciting. Sort of a just-in-time effort with all the pieces coming together. Parking lot just got paved a few days ago. We are expecting over 500 people at the event. We've had something like 450 people RSVP so far.
Wow.
If you're planning on coming, we're gonna run out of parking. So,
I was gonna ride the train.
Take Route
but
2.
Hard to get on that train.
Please take the train. Please take the train. I'm just gonna get a shirt.
Get there
that
early
says
and throw
that.
some elbows.
Please take the train, or walk or bike or whatever, but the pathway segment is not going to be open yet for another month or so. So don't bank on taking that pathway segment. From the south, from Petaluma, you can. But from the north, it's not open. So actually, Jared, I just sent an email out to the whole agency instructing them on how to take Route 2 from the IHOP down to there. So
Excellent.
I'll check. I might check in with you Friday morning just to make sure that bus is running, so we don't have 100 people waiting on the corner.
Put big bus on that one for you.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you know which time it is that we're going to be there for. But yes, so that's happening. We're expecting a huge turnout. We just found out Jared Huffman will be there and many other politicians, so it should be great. In fact, Lagunitas wanted to get involved because they're so close by. And so they're gonna have a presence. They're handing out coupons for drinks or something. And they are bringing a marching band to play at the end and then sort of Pied Piper people back down to Lagunitas. Which is really cool. So anyway, I hope you can all join us. It should be a really, this is work, Rachel. This is coordination. You should come. So let's see, that's going on. We just got Cloverdale and Plan Bay Area. That is something that is many, many years and hours in the making. So that's a really big deal for our agency. I don't know, maybe that's all I have to report. Ridership has been strong. I think you probably all saw on the news that we had to extend our closure by an extra day to do the crossover for Petaluma North. Thank you to everyone that I was texting frantically on Sunday evening to spread the news. I know Eddie reached out to all the GMs and you put it in your newsletters, things. I really appreciated that. But yeah, all went well, but that sort of perfect storm of the storm combined with the cutover was a pretty wild weekend. If there's anything else. So we are going to be able to add bike share to Petaluma North, which is great. SCTA moved some things around to make extra bikes available. We weren't able to make it happen by this Friday, largely because of space constraints. We're gonna have 500 people on a huge tent there. But then after the event, we'll get that set up. That's all I have right now. I can't remember anything but from before vacation, so it's all future.
You guys did a great job constructing that, by the way. You went really fast, especially at the end with the parking lot and everything. I know that was a mad rush, but you guys did a great job of that.
Yeah, they did. I mean, less than a year. I think I read in a speech earlier today that it's like record time for building one of our stations. So
Yeah.
they did a really good job. Yeah, and hopefully that housing development part comes through as well and finishes up the beautification of the site. So.
Yep.
Who does the park?
Well, there's a housing developer, Danco, and they own part of it and they're building housing, but part of the sort of infrastructure is within their domain. And so it's gonna have to be finished by them, I believe.
Yeah, it's called Meridian, the development. It's gonna be all affordable housing and it's got some small parklets and some public areas included. We got additional improvements to our bus stop out of that. It's a fairly complicated project. The good thing is we got a lot of grant funding like TIRSIP and housing credits. But it's involved multiple parties like City of Petaluma and Danco and Smart to apply and sort it all out. I don't know the groundbreaking date on that yet, but
Me either.
within the next several months, I believe.
And I think to mention, because it might come up, that the bus stop, also improvements for that will be intertwined with that development, correct, Jared?
Yes.
Because I think there'll be a desire, obviously, for that bus stop to be beautified and everything, so that's the plan.
Yeah, originally it was gonna be reverse order. I think that was gonna be built first, the development and then the station. And then with some of those complications, it got flipped and the station's there before the developments and the developments associated with the bus. Yes.
Yep.
When is service already running to, I mean, is that actually then the station opens and henceforth afternoon on Friday?
Yeah,
trains
it's
stop there?
such a good question. It's been very confusing to coordinate. Trains are stopping henceforth, starting Friday. So
Okay.
Friday is the opening. We actually delayed the station opening by a couple of weeks in order to align with the schedule change that the ferry's doing, because we didn't want to be out doing two sets of
Yep.
schedule changes 2 weeks apart. As it stands, there's still going to be a sort of 3-day gap between the new weekend schedule and the existing one. And so we have a few different schedules floating around, but yeah, basically it's just slotting into our regular service for this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then starting Monday, we'll have a new schedule posted with the January 13th schedule change, weekend only.
But it won't be weekday. It's just slotting into the weekday schedule.
Correct.
Will you provide us with new schedules or do we need to come pick them up if we want copies of the new ones?
Yes, and I believe marketing actually has a button on our website now to request schedules, or you can just email. Have you met Allison? You know Allison, Maria? Yeah.
Yeah.
She has replaced, Allison Mattioli has replaced Matt Stevens. She's very responsive. If you need any marketing related things, I recommend emailing her. You can always reach out to Julia, but Julia's inbox gets very overwhelmed. And Allison is a great way to contact. But then there's also a new button, so you can request materials too, to sort of streamline the process.
Really told me, use the button, so we're gonna do that.
Yeah, use the button.
Just sounds
I'm
fun.
promoting it. That's all I have.
Thanks. David.
Okay, updates for Golden Gate. Let's see. First numbers, we have November data. Of course, December is not quite closed out yet. Bridge traffic was down 2% compared to November of 2023. There was also one more weekday in 2023, so that's not a cause for concern for us really. For bus ridership, year over year, November is up about 5%. So that's good to see. We're still seeing growth there, even though it's relatively modest. And ferry ridership was up about 1% year over year for November. So our numbers are still well below pre-COVID, but they're still on an upward trajectory, which is nice. Let's see, we are currently in the process of sending 4 of our gill leagues to Vine in Napa to help tide them over until they get their new buses. We've got plenty more. I hear that the terms are challenging, but it depends on your desire to
Level of
have this,
desperation.
yeah, how your level of desperation. And let's see, other things, we're moving forward. We'll have a public hearing. I can't remember if it's this board meeting or the February board meeting this month or next month, a board meeting on fair policy changes. So we'll be taking the Clipper transfer pilot to our board finally, which seems to have worked out because April 1st seems to be slipping as we speak. And as part of that transition, we will, on our end, not be accepting paper transfers from any connecting agencies other than Marin Transit because our systems are intertwined. I know we left it in some state with the Sonoma County operators because on your end, I think there was a desire to continue taking those paper transfers. We should probably still have some sort of agreement put into place. I know for AC Transit, we're just trying to find a good time for them to actually adopt it because they went really early to their board to adopt the pilot. So by the time, despite my best efforts for several months to get them on the same page with us, I think they had other staff working on their own internal changes, and then they threw in the Clipper transfer pilot as part of that effort. And so then this piece ended up falling after. So it's always fun with the paperwork. But we're moving forward with that so that we're ready to go when Clipper 2 goes live. Also, we have service changes starting Sunday. Here in Sonoma County, just minor runtime adjustments to our route, our commute routes, the 164, 172, 172X. We have some other changes elsewhere in our system, including 3 new morning trips on Route 580X, which is the express variant of our service to the East Bay. So we're happy to finally do that. We finally had some consultant time to do runtime analysis on our East Bay service, and we were able to add in the 3 morning trips through some service optimization. So very happy with that. And speaking of the East Bay, in the middle of December, AC Transit had its kickoff community meeting for TSP project in the city of Richmond, which will result in signal priority and a lot of new bus stop amenities along Cutting Boulevard, which is served by our East Bay bus service. So it'll be, probably a year or 2 before we start seeing anything over there, but there should definitely be a noticeable improvement in the condition of the facility for the people who take Golden Gate to the East Bay from up here. And I think that's highlights for us.
Right.
Oh, and sorry, and then Monday ferry schedule changes as well, which there's definitely a lot of schedule changes to Larkspur in particular. So if you take our ferry, please consult a new schedule.
All right, thank you. All right. I don't think we missed anybody online. Any other business comments or announcements?
I don't know if I missed it, that Cami got introduced as our new, oh, good. Okay, awesome. Just making sure.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
We are
I got confused. No, I just, the way we went around the room, I got confused. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to miss you.
I'll make it quick. We are working away in our facility. Trying to actually build a facility now that we have a property. We are doing a procurement for CAD AVL, which is an interesting process. And we are in the final throes of getting APCs. We've installed our APCs and doing the FTA approvals to actually switch over to do our ridership counting with APCs. So that's pretty exciting. We didn't see the promised 20% ridership bump, unfortunately, that Matt promised us. But I remained hopeful.
I'm not sure that we did either, but anyway, so yeah, sorry.
And ridership has continued to grow. So the last month, I think, looking at September, we were at like 103% of pre-pandemic. So I feel strong. And I think our service changes this month are relatively minor. So that's big items.
Great, thank you. And I see David Sorrell's hands up.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for yielding time here. David Sorrell with the Amtrak San Joaquin's and the San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission. Just one and one half minor announcements. We did run a an additional service change on our Amtrak Thruway between Martinez and Ukiah and Humboldt State. We did a minor change in October, and then we understood too that one of our routes were running a little bit behind. One of our schedules were running a little bit behind heading south from Ukiah into Roanoke Park and to Santa Rosa. And that was fixed in late November. We're currently running an analysis right now to make sure that we are ensuring that those riders are connecting into Martinez for long distance and the San Joaquin Amtrak service. And this kind of falls into some of our business plan efforts for fiscal year 26, which will probably require a little more analysis and opportunities for partnerships along many of our stops along Highway 101. And what that means is what can we be able to do in terms of partnerships and try to streamline service throughout both Sonoma, Mendocino, and Humboldt counties.
Thanks so much for the update and for joining.
David, I have a quick question. Just in regards to, I do a lot of outreach and I get a lot of feedback for that Amtrak route that I oftentimes promote, as well as obviously Petaluma Transit and other routes, but that the ticketing is a real challenge. And I didn't know if any work was being done on that front. I guess, people are used to Clipper or things for their bus or transit trips. And I guess what I've heard is they're struggling a little bit to purchase tickets. I didn't know if there was anything on the
since we're not on the right, and thank you, Maria. And I'm happy to talk offline about that. I think the biggest challenge is that since we're not on the Clipper system, essentially that for whether it's bus only ticketing or for connecting into Amtrak, folks that need to purchase tickets would need to do that through the Amtrak website or the Amtrak app. There is one minor exception, and we were approached by the Santa Rosa Chamber about this. So we did a little bit of legwork. If you are a writer that cannot buy a ticket online, you could very well purchase a ticket to Amtrak if you're going through Martinez. That's the only exception. We cannot accept cash. Our drivers that we contract with do not accept cash. At the moment there's no ticketing on board otherwise, other than the app. And those people would need to provide a government issued ID so that the transaction at Martinez can be completed.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. Now I'll go to other business comments and announcements.
We're recruiting for a scheduler if anybody knows. I know there's a nationwide shortage, but
Is it like entry level?
yeah, like entry to mid-level, not a senior level.
I think I may have someone for it.
Okay, that would be wonderful.
Great. All right. Well, thank you all. We'll see you February 19th. Find out the agenda a good week ahead, so. The date. Thanks.
I know it's after the meeting, but I just got the email